Good evening, one and all. Actually, it's very happy and proud moment for me being with the MBIFL 6th edition of Kerala. Most respectful, the young and vibrant political leader. I never used it as a student leader. I consider you as a real political leader of India, the upcoming India, Ms. Aishe Ghosh with us. So I think we can start our discussion like that. The previous session itself, uh, the Mr. P. Rajiv already mentioned, and also the Mr. M. P. Rajesh, how the apolitical system is being within our society. Because we couldn't, sometimes even we couldn't identify we are apolitical sometime. That is why the question, the last one, asked why the students are not aware about the laws and all. How one person will get these kind of perceptions and the legal consciousness through their political consciousness. So let us have begin with that question itself, because historically this is very important. There are a lot of dialogues, lot of debates have happened in the context of campus politics and its relevance, right? So how do you believe that? What is the real role of student movements in India to make this kind of a legal consciousness among the youngsters? So that will be our first question. We can start like that.
Okay, thank you so much. First of all, thanks to Mathrubhumi International Festival of Letters for giving this opportunity to discuss something which is very, very important. It's something we have been discussing, that it's important that why student politics or campus politics is not being discussed often. Why not only about politics, but why the role of student community as a whole, as a community contributing to the society, not being discussed enough. And when Mathrubhumi is having this session, I think so, it starts off that debate. It starts off that churning of ideas, why student politics or student community as a community has a role, very, very important role to play inside the society. Now, when you asked the question, that what role does student movements have inside the society? And if we see historically, if we see the current times, so we draw that how student movements in different phases or different historical times have played very, very important roles in shaping the surroundings, in shaping what's not only happening inside the campuses, but shaping young minds on how they think, how they process information, and what happens around them. Like if we see the historical struggles, when the freedom struggles have been happening. So campuses or educational institutions were the pivotal points where students got together to discuss what's happening around. And hence, when they discussed, when these ideas churned, is when they realized that what's happening inside the society. They support them or not support them. Any ideas, exchange of ideas do happen when the basic thing called discussion, debates, dissent starts inside happening. And when we argue, agree to disagree, and things like that. And student movement, how does that have an important role? That it then comes up and brings up topics that lets you have that flow of idea. And hence, when you debate and dissent on certain ideas, you also churn your political understanding, where as an individual, you do stand inside the society. Also how, as an individual, we reflect on the legalities that's happening. For example, a lot of discussions happened in the past few years on the Citizenship Amendment Act, for example. If we just take vibrant protests have been happening across the country in many parts, right? But as a student community, why should we know about the Citizenship Amendment Act? Why should it bother for us to know what CAA is, what NRC is, what are the legalities into it? So when we discuss about what CAA is and NRC is we start developing our idea that what is it? Why as a new law being brought? What was different from the earlier laws? Legalities into it. And for n number of scopes, we can talk about the same things when we are discussing about farm laws, when we are discussing about something like the new education policy, any legalities. When we are discussing about these things, we also come up with different topics, which is like democracy. We talk about the constitution. many of the youth, when we discuss all these things, we also get to know what our constitution tells us. We get to know that what all fundamental rights and duties do we have. And in generally, many of the times, I don't think so, these kind of discussions do come up through our curriculum or syllabus. Because I have studied, I'm doing my PhD, and it's just few months left to complete it. I'm having a political science student. But many of my friends who have not come from those type of topics, they generally don't tend to discuss what constitution is, why fundamental rights are important. And hence, the student politics or activism gives them that space where they can come, agree, disagree. We also get to learn a lot of things from these kind of discussions. So student movements across have helped to be that binding glue that connects us to the society, that does not keep us as a community very indifferent, that we are seeing these days. Growing sentiment of indifference inside campuses. I think the student movement have created that binding glue. So that's the importance of a student movement, that makes us aware, that makes us, helps us to know where exactly as individuals we place ourselves, what exactly is happening around us.
Actually, I think you mentioned it as a political being is more important to survive and to live, right? Yes, but already you have mentioned the historical event, like from even in the history, the 1857 itself, there is a most inclusive part of the campus movement even in the freedom fight, right? So my question is, what exactly leading this student movement in the campuses in India nowadays? Because exactly the question is, you are following that legacy from the freedom movement itself, or something new you are facing? What exactly leading?
Of course, like many students are sitting here, so we all come from the same time frame. So we would obviously not compare ourselves as something which was happening during those times. Of course, we have the legacy of that, what students did contribute during the freedom struggle. But what importantly I was trying to talk about, that when the freedom struggle was going, when the fight against the British imperialism was going, the colonial structures were there, it was the students who were getting educated, who were getting education, did realize that what's happening inside the society, what's happening around, is not right. And through the education, through the medium of education, through the medium of knowledge, through the medium of enlightenment, they could differentiate that what is to be in a country where you can't say that this country is ours, where you can't say that you're the citizen of this country, where you are getting ruled, enslaved by powers who are coming from outside, and what is to be breathing air in a free country, a democratic country, or in a country where we have our own rights, where we call this country ours, right? So students did have a vision like that in the freedom struggle. And hence, if we see, when we read about the works of Bhagat Singh, Sukhdev, Rajguru, and a lot of student leaders back then, we read that how pointedly they spoke about that the role of student community is only not to acquire education, like not only to acquire, to go to a college, go to a school and get degrees. The role of students is also to analyze the society, what's happening around us. If that knowledge, that kind of education is not helping us, then there is no point of getting educated, because what is happening around us will always remain unequal. What's happening around us will always enslave people, and as student communities, our responsibility to speak up. And if we see that post the freedom struggle, when India got independence, the nature of student movements, the nature of student politics, of course, changed. Because India was independent, we had government, we had something which we could call our own country, we had the constitution. But what started later issues is this implementation then. That of course we have the constitution. Of course we have it. It talks about fundamental rights. Each and every citizen inside this country should be equal. But when we started going to our educational spaces, our universities, we started seeing what democracy, what fundamental rights and duties being talked in the constitution, it's not actually happening when we see vis-a-vis our classrooms. We saw that students from certain sections only could come and access education. We saw that education was only belonging to a certain class, caste, from particular dominant caste students. So when that kind of realization happened, we again saw a churning within the students' movement to demand that within this setup, even in the independent Indian context, we should have an education system which is more egalitarian, which is talking about the rights of the student at core. We saw that participation of women were not inclusive enough. Many of the higher education spaces did not have enough women going to higher education, and hence, oppressed communities, we did not see. Minority communities, we did not see their higher participation. And then the student movement's task was then to mobilize or champion this idea of gender justice, social justice, to ensure that campus spaces become a space where we debate, bring out ideas that how our educational spaces can be more and more inclusive. We saw the era of emergency. We saw the times of emergency where across the country, the powers, democratic powers were being curtailed. And we again saw the role of student movements there, who could openly talk about that what's happening inside this country is not right. And then again we saw that many of these campuses at that time protested. They said that what's happening across inside the citizens is not right, and also as student community is important for us to speak about it. And of course, if we see the 90s era, when privatization was happening, market was opening, privatization of education was happening. I think so, not only in Kerala, across the country, community were the ones who spoke first that privatization of education is going to close the door in the longer run for students coming from the marginalized community. What about right to education? What about education imparted to everyone? So, and now that we see, post-2000s, we are fighting a different battle. So now we are battling with different ideas. We are battling ideas where we are talking about campuses should be more spaces where ideas can be there, where dissent can be celebrated. Because we are seeing continuously that dissent is not being celebrated. While we are, as student activists, as student youth, when we are speaking here, we know so many students have been jailed because they are speaking out, because they are critical of what the government is wanting to say, or critical of policies. So that space of dissent is shrinking. We are seeing people also at the same time when we are talking about dissent and all, we are also seeing that student union elections, representation of basic minimum things like representation of student community in campuses are not there in many of the parts of this country. Representation alone of women, genders, different genders, representation of different communities, minorities are not there in educational system. So we are also battling that. We are battling scientific temperament, because that is something which is a huge concern at this moment in educational campuses, that scientific temperament is shrinking in educational systems, and also the growth of a communal sentiment and temperament inside campus, which is also concerning, which I think so the student community now would agree that we are all dealing with, to what is the right way to combat this kind of sentiment, where our secular campuses or democratic campuses are always been put in a fight, that whether we want soft kind of sense of dogmatism, or we don't want, or we take a hardcore line for this, how much scientific approach should we have, how much solidarities we should give beyond a certain limit. So all these questions is something that we are facing. Also, one more very important thing that student activism or movements are facing these days is of solidarities beyond their campuses. So I think so one thing which was very important in the historical times or in the past is, like, one campus was not fighting only lone battle. We could connect as student community that what is happening is not inside one campus. It's always happening to a student community. As student community, whether you are in Kerala, whether you are in Delhi, whether you are in Maharashtra or Bengal, everybody can connect together, that if it's happening even in Kerala, it is all our responsibility at student community, because students in Kerala are affected, or students in Bengal are affected, or students in Delhi are affected. We know these kind of solidarities have helped us identify as student community fighting for something, or speaking up for something. For example, which is very, very relevant, and we should think upon as student community, the student community in Palestine, if we see, they got, the universities were bombarded, their educational institutions were bombarded, and as a student community, it is our responsibility. Many people will obviously come and say that you should go and save your own school, you should go and study, why are you bothered about it, why should you as an individual bothered about it, and we all get these questions. Why we should be bothered about it is movements only are movement, like the basic idea of a movement is about solidarity. Movements are nothing other than solidarities. Any movement has been successful or not, any movement have been able to bring that societal and political consciousness is only because of solidarities. Because I still remember that the time I was the union president back in JNU, the kind of solidarity we got from the Indian students and also the students outside, I think so students would not understand the kind of message, powerful message people like we felt back in Delhi, because we knew that, okay, we are fighting, 4,000 students inside a campus was fighting, but we knew that there are lakhs of students who are there to voice our opinion back in their cities and towns and wherever they are located. So solidarities means huge. So I think so that is something we are facing as a student community, a challenge, that we are going away. We are getting alienated from the fights of others. We need to connect our fights with others. That is something we are facing also very crucially.
Exactly, that was my next, actually, that was my next question, because how could you define this relationship of the real campus politics to the Indian national politics? At the same time, I thought that something is lagging in between this kind of coordination with the other movements which is happening in India and the other sides. So because already you have mentioned a lot of struggles, lot of oppressions, lot of movements which actually happened in India in different times and with different needs. But the common point is that there was a connection, there was a continuity, and also there was something little bit is lagging nowadays. I felt so. What about you? Any continuity and cooperation of the other movements also?
Of course, I think so there is. When I was speaking, I think so, trying to mention that. That, of course, as student committee, we would all agree that there is a discontinuity in movements that we are doing. I'm sure in student community in Kerala would be fighting for certain things inside the campuses. I'm studying in Delhi. So we are also fighting for certain things inside our campuses. I'm a resident of Bengal, and their students are fighting for something inside campuses and every other states. But that is what I was trying to say and define that student community or student community as a large, it's our responsibility to connect them through a binding thing, which is the common purpose, which is change within the educational system. We all are fighting in our positions for betterment, better facilities inside education systems which is more and more inclusive. So it is very important for all of us to unite in a fashion, unite in a way where we are able to communicate this generation, our generation, with whom we are sitting in our own classrooms, and also to the other generations which are there, that why are we doing movements? Movements can't have any hollowness. Movements have to be connected, that why are we doing something? Why, if we are raising voice, why are we doing so? So that kind of, I think so, critical imagination is lacking. And also if we see what I was trying to connect, that there is a new thing called the apolitical politics. Apolitical, like people who are calling themselves apolitical, I might face criticism, but it's okay. I really want to say that being apolitical is also a politics. It is nothing apolitical. To choose to not speak on certain occasions and to choose to speak on certain occasions, of course, it comes from the space of privilege. It comes from the space where we want that if certain information does not affect me, I'm not going to speak about it. For example, if there is something like harassments happening or gender injustices happening, of course, it's not the responsibility of women only to speak up, right? It's the responsibility as a community, as the entire society should speak up of something which is gruesome, something we should not tolerate, something we all should be united to speak up, right? So we would not expect that, okay, women only will come down on the streets to bring the change. Of course, women will be there pioneering the change. Women will be there to speak about what issues they face within the system, what structural injustices they face. But it's not only, the burden is not on the women. The consciousness, political, social is not only on the women. So regarding everything, what's happening inside this country, for example, the farmers movement, I'm very sure a lot of you would have followed, or you were young also at that time, maybe in school and all, while the farmers' movement was going on at the national capital. So the farmers' movement went on for 1 year, post 2020 till 2021. And it is very, very important as student community for us to connect to it, because a lot of students that we have, the lot of student community that is there in India comes from backgrounds, come from families whose parents are from the farming community. And we can't shy away such facts. We can't shy away the facts that the student community who comes to education system is from the student community of this working class population or the farming community population. And today, if their households are facing issues because of some policy, it is also very, very important for us as student community to speak up, because at the end, what will happen, because of the issues there, these students will be impacted and they won't be able to enter educational institutions. And we have seen. So when a fee hike happens, for example, in JNU, I'll give an example because it's a very practical examples that we have faced, that inside the university that we are studying, when 2019 happened, a fee hike, massive movement against fee hike was happening in JNU. So what did the JNU administration said? That, no, you have to pay a huge fee. Now, people were saying that, okay, in this 2021, 2020, why can't you pay a meager fee of 1,000, 2,000 rupees? It's very less if you see. The other inflations and everything happening, that of course better education comes with more fees, and other institutes are paying so much, IITs are paying so much. Why are JNU students only talking about not paying fees? What is the problem with these students that they don't want to pay fees? The logic that we gave is, we might have one student inside our classroom, only one. For example, even if it's factual, that we might have one student who comes from a family who is not able to pay that fees. What we said, that fee structure should be decided according to that one student's capacity of paying the fees, not on what the highest person decides. Because the higher limit can be anything. The higher limit can be lakhs, the higher limit can be 1,000, somebody can be comfortable with 50,000, somebody can be comfortable with 1 lakh also, somebody can be comfortable with 30,000. That's not what comfortability is. That's not what affordability is. That is not what accessibility is. Accessibility is when the person with the lowest income is able to comfortably say that, yes, this education system is accessible for me because it's a 20 rupees fees and that is only I can afford. And that kind of imagination has to be there. And that is how we have to connect our fights. That when we talk about farmer struggles, we have seen so many students, especially women students, have dropped out because they are not able to continue their higher education, because they are facing pressure from their families that if they need to, I say this and I'll say this also, that here, that when it's about choosing education in a family, if there is a boy and there is a girl, families tend to go with boys' education, higher education. Because at the end, they feel educating of women is something like, it's a vain. We are not going to get anything back out of educating of women. So educating of women is always seen as a profit-oriented thing, whether they will do anything, whether we will get back that money or what is going to happen. With men, families are more comfortable in educating them because they need to at the end run a family. But for women, we don't as a society see that. So that is where the problems are. So connecting it with larger fights also helps us democratize our vision of how we are seeing student movements.
Aishe, you are absolutely right, because these kind of experiences from the JNU itself, I want to add one more question, because sometimes before, we couldn't see in such a scene like that, what exactly happening nowadays in Delhi in different campuses. Um, exactly from the struggles, the 3 or 4 decades, from the 3 or 4 decades from the extreme right, what exactly done with the society, the thoughts of extreme right, what kind of changes they have made in the campus itself. That kind of extreme right thoughts, what exactly they were working in the society, that may reflect in future in our campus. Do you feel that kind of reflections is happening in your campuses, especially your experiences from Delhi campuses like JNU, Delhi universities are there, law institutes are there. What's exactly your experience?
Of course, I think so. The right-wing infiltration is quite deep. At least in the national capital, it's quite deep. The institutes that we come from, whether it's Jamia Millia Islamia University, it's Delhi University, is Jawaharlal Nehru University, any of the institutes. Of course, maybe in Kerala, the situations might be a bit different. But of course, I think so, we need to discuss this because the right-wing infiltration is not only happening at the policy level, it's also happening at the cultural level. What is campus democracy? The redefining of the definition of campus democracy. So how did we face right-wing attacks is not only through physical attacks. It's physical attacks was the last leg of attacks that we started facing. The right-wing infiltration started happening in campuses with cultural changes. With changes like, for example, we are putting wall posters. There is a practice of putting wall posters because there is a practice that because we are student community, we can't spend a lot of money in having flexes and all. So we are student community, we need to paint the walls of our university and to communicate our messages. So if anybody has Googled or been to JNU, I don't know, you can see that we are known for the wall posters inside JNU. So if we want to speak about Ambedkar, we'll write a quote of Ambedkar there and try to communicate to the student and the entire university community that this is what we believe in. And different organizations do so. So first of all, we saw that tearing down of these posters started happening. So you were fighting every day that, okay, this is our ideas, why are you wanting to tear, and such kind of cultural changes. Rules being brought that, oh, if you turn down the walls, if you paint the walls as student community, you will be fined a lot, or disciplinary actions will be taken on the student community. And we saw that these were happening through government institutions, administrations, which tried to discipline students. Now, discipline students. So we started asking that what is the concept of discipline is? Like for you, what discipline is? Is discipline means that university walls will be painted properly? And what does discipline mean? What is the idea of being a student being disciplined? If a student is communicating, trying to communicate their ideas through a wall, is it an act of indiscipline? On what ways is the administration trying to see it as an act of indiscipline? If somebody is writing a quote of Savitribai Phule, if somebody is writing a quote of Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi, somebody is writing a quote of, and every organization used to do it. It's not only I'm talking about the left student organizations. Every student organization in campus used to paint walls and do this. So we said that this idea of discipline has to be challenged, and that is how this started. And later we saw that the attack started coming on the student union elections, representation, that elections will not happen in a timely fashion, or when representations are happening, not allowing them in important meetings, and such things started happening. What then followed by those was extreme government control on university administration, extreme. Like the flow of money that's happening from the University of Grants Commission on doing programs, right-wing programs. So if you now go to any central university, you will see that the vice chancellor of these universities are officially sitting in RSS's program, which we had never seen before, that any vice chancellor is going in this manner to cultural, official, political programs in the capacity and inaugurating events like this continuously. And then allowing such things to happen inside campus spaces, allowing different festivities to happen inside campus spaces. Yeah. Now the thing is, we believe in the fact that education is a space where we do not need to practice one faith over the other. Yeah. There is no necessity of that. We have n number of faith institutions outside educational campuses. We specifically don't need to bring in religion inside educational space because students are identifying themselves as students first. We need to communicate each other. We need to communicate ideas. There is no imposition required. But what we saw that the RSS did it started pushing cultural festivities inside slowly and then tried to divide the students among themselves. That, okay, these number of students are opposing this cultural festivity, matlab, these people are anti-religious. It has nothing to do with anti-religion. There is n number of festivities happening and they should happen how they have been happening. We did not need an educational campus before this to do that. We as student community were celebrating many things, many festivities before also. But we never required a Jawaharlal Nehru University to celebrate that, to put a stamp on it that, okay, the religious festivity is better now because JNU is doing it. No. JNU or DU or any of the central universities are not supposed to do that. Central universities or educational hubs are supposed to bring in young minds who are equipped with their educational purposes or for academic purposes. But that was happening. And what followed post that is the physical attacks that we had started seeing, that they will suddenly target 1, 2 individuals. They will start physical fights. Now, why I want to detail it out on this matter? Because people will see physical fight as 2 groups fighting. I'll tell you it's not the 2 groups fighting. Because every time if we see media, like especially for JNU, I have seen this, I'm very sure it's happening in other campuses. Whenever 2 political groups are there, media or any place will paint it as 2 groups politically led were fighting among each other. Nobody wants to speak who initiated that, what was the background behind it, why did they come and instigate, what happened, what followed by. This is exactly happened in 2020 when I was hit by AVVP in 2020 and those images went out into public. 8 days later, an FIR was filed on me personally saying that this girl also was there in some place and she is also equally responsible. So nobody was talking about what was the background of that thing. Why did suddenly the RSS's student wing decide to come and hit me as an individual or other people? Nobody wanted to talk about it. Everybody wanted to keep themselves aside saying this is 2 groups fight. Let's not be into that. Why should we speak? These people will harm us, and this kind of narrative went. So this is what they are doing. They are creating situations now which is making students get alienated from the democratic processes. And that's something very, very concerning. They are not doing it for our good. They are doing it because they know that doing this will help mobilize opinion to not participate in democratic processes. When during elections, fight will break out. When during elections or any student politics or student event, if you see a fight is happening, I'm very sure majority of the students will say, I will not participate into it because I want to remain safe. And no parents would encourage, which is true. None of, like our parents also were not encouraging initially that you go for the fight. No, you go and support it. It happens. And that is what they want. Depoliticization is the new politics. That you keep students depoliticized. You keep students so depoliticized that they will not even know what's happening around them is going to affect them. And then they bring in policies which are going to affect us as student community more and more. And that is how the RSS is functioning, at least in our campuses. I'm very sure that that kind of mechanisms, they have started functioning in many of the campuses we are also seeing and experiences.
Really, I couldn't understand that the administration, how the RSS or the extreme right is engaging with all these administrations and they are keeping all these things in the campus. But the exact question is how it will affect the minds of students. These extreme right activities and their policies and their agendas, how it works on the minds of students?
Of course, it works a lot. Like when we are seeing it in school education. So the right wing capturing, I think so the last session also they were talking about the UGC regulations which has come. Now UGC regulations are very higher education related regulation. Let's start talking about school education. What's happening in school education? Like all of you majorly have been in schools, we have been in schools. So in schools, what did we learn? Whatever syllabus were taught, we learned. We learned about the society through our school books, right? That, okay, this happens, this is how faiths are, this is what beliefs are, these many states we have, like factual information is something that we started getting in school syllabus. And we started forming opinion about our society. On one hand, we went to school to read, to learn. We started also seeing society. Like, for example, I was talking to Amrutha and I was saying that if we remember, like at least in my school books, it was always that your mother cooks and your father goes to earns money and comebacks. So I have always read as a child, I have always remembered this line in my textbook where they're saying that my father goes to earn money and my mother cooks. So when my mother didn't cook and my father did in my house, I was feeling outrageous. I questioned them that why? My book says that only mother cooks and my father does not. So why are you cooking? How are the roles are getting reversed? So what kind of education your school teaches you? stays a long time. It frames the basic structure in our minds. And that is why if you see that the curriculum change that we are talking about, that curriculum changes, what will be taught to you, what kind of dynamics religious communities will have inside the society, what kind of dynamics communities will have in the society. For a long time, a lot of us would not find about the northeastern states inside our school syllabuses because it's not amply represented, it's not written about. Only when we went to universities, we met them in person, we got to know, okay, Assam, Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Arunachal. We didn't know. It was not taught to us, right? We did not know about it. It's not about ignorance. It was been purposefully ignored from our syllabuses. And hence now the RSS had picked up school syllabuses. They have started capturing education very, very conveniently because they know that if they prepare one generation of young minds who will have a divisive understanding, who will read it that, okay, every bad thing that happens inside this country is because of a particular faith, then they will start practicing it. Once they start practicing it, it's going to create the division that they want, that the RSS wants culturally, that they want younger minds to start practicing that. And we are seeing ample, when we go for school students, we go for many programs, we've heard a number of students asking us questions which might be very, very shocking, that how did they learn from? Where did they get to learn from?
Yes.
And this is similarly happening through the UGC at university level. They are capturing our universities. Like, deciding of vice chancellors is not happening abrupt. Many might think it's okay, vice chancellors are getting nominated, vice chancellors are getting nominated by center. What is the issue? Why are we making a big fuss about it? We are making a big fuss about it because where vice chancellors are being appointed by the RSS, by the BJP, by the central government, union government at this moment, we are already seeing the campus orientations have changed. The divisiveness is quite strong. We are always seeing a space where we are not having a healthy democratic space where we can discuss anything. For example, in 2023 or 2022, if I'm not wrong, in January, the BBC came out with a documentary on Modi, right? And that was released. And then subsequently it was put on hold on YouTube. So when it was released, I was still the union representative back in JN, and we decided that we will screen this. Let students, we'll screen this not because we want to take a side. We decided we want to screen it because we want young minds to see that and decide for themselves whether the documentary is right or wrong. Not because we wanted to frame an opinion that, no, everything that you see in the documentary has to be accepted. No. But unless and until young minds, if we don't see only, how are we going to decide that what is right, what is wrong? So what this government or the ruling dispensation wants us to do is just close your eyes.
Yeah, actually, so this is a fact, what exactly we are facing. Now, what will be our plan to overcome this situation? And what is your imagination to reimage India according to these kind of political consciousness of the student movement in India? Then what will be your plan? What will be your imagination with campus politics?
So campus politics, first of all, has to be more and more democratized. Campus politics has to be more and more inclusive. It has to come driven from the bottom-up approach. That is always we try to say. And we have to be innovative. It's a true fact that, of course, students are alienating from us or campus politics in general. So we need to also find out ways. Of course, people will only see tools like social media and all. I'm not saying that. That is tools to make propagandas and things and all. But we need to find out ways where we are able to engage on the educational perspective to students and as student community, able to tell the alternative that's happening. For example, history books, textbooks, or parts of history is getting removed. We can think of having more of such discussions at our level, at university level, at campus level, to bring in speakers who can speak about what has been the historical trajectory during the freedom struggle, post that, what has been happening. The more and more we inculcate such ideas is more and more we will have more democratic participation, more democratic ideas coming in flowing into the student community.
Dissent,
Yeah, dissent coming in, or not only about dissent, it's about
Way of
whether
expression.
ideas are coming out
Yes.
even in the student community, that what is happening, what is going on, whether we are feeling affected or not affected. So that is the only way that we can connect to the student community, is to speak their language, is to speak what they are comfortable with connecting it to
Connecting it to
what we want politically to communicate. That has to go hand in hand. And only when that interest comes, student community will start coming up to give their ideas about the society. Also, one last thing is students have to be made believe that they are the change makers.
Yes.
Because that is something very, very important. I think so the generation now has started feeling that they are not important for the society. Their contribution does not matter much. That is where we need to start to tell students, young minds, that only your opinion matters, because you are the people who are going to change, be the change makers. You are the people who are going to frame the structures in the coming days of the country. So that's
Aishe, actually,
important.
the last question is something very personal, because I have noticed one your interview. You have mentioned that you are she is the first person coming out from your family to go on for your higher education in Delhi, right? Especially in the time of 2012. So that was very tragic time of in the period of India, and also that was your life. You are the first politician from your family also. Then how does it happen? How does the evolution of Comrade Aishe Ghosh as a campus leader, as a student leader? So that was a very something different and also something inspirational.
Yeah, but like, of course, like that is there.
I think you
Yeah.
can add some more thing. Even today, this is a male political show, right? This is male political system. Then what is your role also? What about your future plans?
Yeah, of course, like a lot of us, like, of course, my story is not different. Many of us have been coming from families where we are going for higher education first, and we are challenging, facing barriers, challenges. So I think so facing them is something very, very important. It's not that all families will have supportive structures, and their supporting or not supporting also does not come that they don't want good for you. It also comes because they're not aware. Like, for example, I'm doing a PhD. My parents have not done beyond certain school education. So they don't even know what PhD is. So blaming them is not going to happen, because they were not exposed to such structures. They didn't know what is to be a woman going for higher education, why they should. So that is one thing, and same with politics. They have never seen somebody doing politics, being so exposed to public space. For them, it was something very fearful. And how they have seen in TV and media how politics is. So they are very much concerned when it comes to our women also. As you rightly pointed out, that things are so male-dominated around that it becomes difficult for people to channelize that imagination. But of course, I would say that of course, my organization SFI had, without naming that, I don't think so I'll do justice. That had a very, very important role for me to play, because I don't think so I would have been what I am individually without that political space that I have received. I wouldn't be what I am, or I would be fighting in this vigor or with this commitment without that space that my organization has provided. So that individual temperament made into an organized way is something, the way forward for many individuals like me who find their spaces, find their voices through organized politics.
Thank you so much, Aishe Ghosh. So this was the end of the session. I think now the platform is open for some discussions and questions.
So now we can have the Q&A session. But before going into that, just to add something to a comment, you said, I totally agree to your observation regarding the intrusion of cultural nationalism that it's expanding so aggressively, so much so that there is greater polarization within the student community. And to put it in more good words, earlier when the British used to call universities the factories of sedition, we would proudly oppose them. There was a solidarity across the nation. But when the same label is now applied against the context of aggressive cultural nationalism, we see that there is this strict decline in solidarity. So that is something that needs to be addressed. Secondly, parallel to the cultural nationalism, there is also a astute dismantling of institutional dismantling is also going on through various institutions, whether it is UGC or for the NAC for that matter. So adding to that, now we can take some questions. Okay.
Good evening, Amrutha, Aisha. First of all, I was part of student politics right from my pre-degree days to PhD days. Still, I raise this question. So, when we take a short range of Kerala politics, 5 years, we can only see only 5% of students, leaders are emerging, and they are directly moving to the parliamentary politics trajectory. But if you go for an introspection about the rest, they are being hanged in atrocities, criminal cases, and leading to the derailing of focus of their academic objectives, career objectives, professional objectives, and personal life. So, what is your take on that? That is my first question. And second question is that right from 1956 to 2025, cutting across all political parties in Kerala, immaterial of politics. When we take the sample cases or random sampling of any political leader in Kerala, their children are not coming through the trajectory of active politics. So politicians themselves are shedding their children to cold storage politics and are urging the society to other students to come forward with politics. So you answer me from this, from a perspective of a parent.
Okay, so I'll go ahead with the question. So I think so. It's a part of democratizing and our ideas also through student politics, of course. Like student politics is also not homogeneous. When we are talking about student being participant in politics, there are various ideologies that will be there in political spectrum. It's not that everyone who is doing student politics comes from the same ideological political backing. And what they end up doing then again, like a lot of people in the national politics at this moment comes from student politics, but they have put their hands down to destroy all the institutions are there. They also come from student politics, right? We have seen big names coming from student politics, and now they are in the union government and telling that UGC should be banned, scholarships should be removed. So it's about ideologies, what ideologies we believe in. And that churning of ideologies has to happen. Agreed that that has to happen in a much larger way. And also, I don't know whether you were trying to mean also this, that not a lot of people are going to parliamentary politics, and many still remain, some of them go to parliamentary politics and many don't. The point is not necessarily every student activist has to enter parliamentary politics. I know because even my introduction was getting introduced as I contested somewhere. That is part of it. But we don't have itna seats also. If every student wants to contest, I don't think so they would be able to. That's not the basic maths. The point is that as student community, are we politically able to see that change, have a vision for that change, bring up things which can change the society as a whole. Being political is not political career we are trying to mean here. Politics is not only to be seen as a career, politics has to be seen as something individually we practice. Of course, we all practice. Being apolitical also, we practice being political. So we are saying not only about careers in politics, but we as individual student community being political, being affected by what is happening around us, having an opinion about what is happening around us. And hence, we democratize the process in a longer way. That reduces then the opportunities that you are trying to say that people are ending up not going academically well, or they are ending up in doing many of these activities which is anti-social. So such kind of things can only reduce when we are democratizing the political space discussions more and more.
Actually, I want to answer both the questions. The first question is, a lot of people have only live with the cases and criminal cases, a lot of criminal cases, and they left the politics and they are leading their lives. I also have saw a lot of criminal cases. I am the party of a lot of criminal cases from my very student days. And also, now the other question was why the politicians are keeping their children away from the politics, right? My father was not a politician. My father was not a politician. I am the first person from my family as a politician emerged in my college days. So that is the answer. This is not a molding procedure. Yes, I have 2 kids. They have their own choice. They can choose their politics. They can choose their religion. They can choose their belief. So that is my political consciousness. That only I can pass to my next generation. So that is my answer. I think it's enough, right?
I just wanted to add to Amrutha. Again, what I was trying to say, it's not about political career. Why do we see that this person's son or daughter is not ending up becoming a MP or MLA should be only seen as a benchmark whether they are political or not. Political or not is decided what is individuals believe they are political or not. Not only joining a certain party and doing active politics. Let young minds come. Whoever wants to actively do politics, let them come. Let them be there with the right political discourse. That should be our target. As political leaders, are we able to motivate young minds to come to the right political discourse? It should be our churning. Not that only my offsprings go and join the same political party. Only then they will be considered as political. We should try to avoid in situations where we are not able to politicize our own next generations, where they are saying, no, they are apolitical. My mother or father was a big political leader, but I am apolitical. No, that is something that we should be able to avoid. That is something we have to avoid. That is something we can't have. But what we should not limit it to seeing as political career or joining of active politics as whether people are political or not political.
10-year-old and another one is 5-year-old. I think they are the much political persons in my family. Every time they are questioning our even a single words we are using in the house. So that means the process of politicalization is a continuous process from the childhood itself.
Hello. First of all, I want to say that this was the first female session I attended today. It was very inspiring. Thank you so much, ma'am. My question is, you mentioned two things. One is the right infiltration in campuses, especially in Delhi. I am familiar. I was a DU student. So that is one thing you mentioned. The another thing you mentioned was that we need to democratize politics more in campuses. So my question is that, what I've observed there is that the right-wing parties particularly have a lot of resources, be it money or power. So they have their own ways of influencing people or even depoliticizing people. So the other political organizations, be left organization or independent student organization, they have a much difficulties or challenges in approaching students or incentivizing students to speak up. So as a union member and political student activist, how do you think we should address this? Because students are mostly left helpless in such situations.
So, the point is that, of course, that you are talking about from the Delhi University's perspective, and I can relate to, that the kind of money is being thrown at elections. Again, the point is that, is Delhi University only seen as an election-specific agenda? If we see that, then of course the two political parties which win elections, which is the AVVP and the NSUI, are overachieving. They are winning seats. That is there. They have a lot of resources. But what we are trying to see, if we see the other democratic and independent left organizations or democratic organizations, they are setting the agendas. For example, now, we might not have a lot of resources. And what do resources do? They bring in people. We have to go with the agenda to bind more and more people. See, our agenda can be only, not resources only. Our agenda has to be how much students are connected to the ideas that we are able to promote inside Delhi University or any of the universities. The more people we have, automatically any resources can be defeated. The problem is we are falling short in connecting more and more people. That is what we have to do. And I don't know whether you have followed this year's results of the left. It has actually sprung up because we have continued the process in Delhi University where we have continuously spoken that we don't have resources, but we have ideas. If you want change, you believe in our ideas, you do vote for us, and people have given us votes. So we are hoping that even in Delhi University, we will be able to bring changes in next 2-3 years, for sure.
Anyway, I think this is the time is up, right? Yes. So this is the end of this
So-
session.